everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, and that is Caleb, and today we have some big news in Husker Nation. We got a more low-key, straightforward video today. We're talking about Nebraska's new coaches. All right, we got 3 coaches to talk about today. Obviously, Frost has been on the search for a new offensive coordinator, a new wide receivers coach, and a new offensive line coach. And the search is still on for the special teams / running backs coach and deciding who ends up filling those roles. But we got the big one, the big domino to fall was the offensive coordinator, and that's what we're going over today. It's going to be a blast. And Caleb, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Obviously, I was really excited about the Mickey Joseph hire, and I think everybody, I guess, that got expectations pretty high. They set up a high bar for what Nebraska could get. And obviously, with our recruiting right now, 58th in the country, not doing so hot, not a single 4-star for the next season. It's kind of imperative that we get some coach with some hype around him to hopefully
the momentum rolling. Like you said, the big key is hitting the transfer portal with the hype after getting these coaches. And so, I mean, let's just start off with the one that happened first. Maybe Mickey Joseph from LSU, obviously. He's going to be the wide receivers coach, the assistant head coach, and the passing game coordinator for Nebraska. And what are your thoughts on him? What's his resume? What are you thinking?
Really exciting. LSU is the most recent one, obviously, with guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. That's about as good as it gets, as those guys seem to be on a trajectory towards the Hall of Fame in the NFL. So that's about as solid as it gets. Justin Jefferson broke the receiving record as a rookie, and now Jamar Chase is looking to break Justin Jefferson's record. So pretty impressive there. So it's pretty exciting. And then winning a college football playoff obviously is pretty awesome. He's also a former Nebraska guy, which, everybody, all the hires seem to be like, that's one of the criterion, it almost feels like at this point in time, for a lot of those guys. Played from 88 to 91, obviously had success, got to play under Tom Osborne, coached right guards. He coached at Millard North High School, eventually running backs at La Tech before then kind of getting that job at LSU. Also, interesting enough, he coached special teams at Grambling and Alcorn State. So he's been a lot of places. He has a lot of experience. And obviously, I think, it's exciting again to be in that passing game coordinator and to develop wide receivers. If Jamar Chase wasn't a 5-star guy, and obviously LSU's been, wide receiver but he's kind of continued that tradition and maybe even up the bar.
For sure. I mean, I think Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, those types of guys, Terrence Marshall are that's about as good of a resume as you can have over the past 5 years to developing talent at the position. So it's exciting to see him come in here. If you're like a Xavier Betts, you got to be excited about a guy like that coming in to hopefully develop you in the future. So that hire off the rip felt like an absolute home run. And like you said, set the bar really, really high for Mickey Joseph. The biggest thing overall was all right, who are we going to hire as offensive coordinator? Obviously, the offensive line was a big time problem the last few years, to say the least.
What?
And so it was who are you going to fill in there? So let's talk about Donovan Raiola, who's coming in from the Bears to fill the spot.
Brother Dominic obviously played at Nebraska, All-American, drafted in the 2nd round, played 14 years for the Lions, had the awesome red eye contacts, as we all remember. Super dominant. But Donovan, not a bad career himself. He was the center for Wisconsin football, which I do kind of like that aspect. He's been in the Big Ten. He knows what Big Ten offensive lines are about. Played from 2003 to 2005, and no shocker, the apple didn't fall from the tree. He also played center for Wisconsin, so that's a pretty solid thing, And then he bounced around. He was a journeyman in the NFL for about 4 years, which is kind of the tenure of any NFL
average NFL player.
So he went from 2006 to 2010, kind of bounced around, and then played for the Omaha Nighthawks for a couple years. I actually did catch one of those games, so funny enough, I did see him play at one point in time in the classic arena football.
Classic.
And now he's been an assistant with the Chicago Bears for the last 4 years. He's been an assistant O-line coach. They allowed 33 sacks in 2018, which was 3rd least in the NFC. They also have produced a 1,000-yard rusher multiple times in David Montgomery.
Yeah, it is tough, again, with NFL talent and coaching as an assistant coach or a positional coach in the NFL, because you just have so little control about the personnel that you're given. And so you're really about developing the individuals and not the collective a lot of the times. And he was the assistant for the Bears too, where in college you're coming in and you have to recruit these guys. You have to develop them from freshman year to senior year. You have these guys for a long time. Where in the NFL, you might be given a guy for 1 season. He might be an undrafted free agent. You might pick it up for 1 year. He might play 5 snaps. It's just a lot more moving parts with NFL rosters. So it's kind of hard to grade exactly how good of a coach he really is. And I think that's where our hesitation comes in overall with him, where I think there's a lot of potential here with him and what he could bring, but he doesn't have a proven track record as an offensive line coach. And Frost is trying to win this season.
Exactly. And yeah, he's just so young. I mean, again, the youth is exciting, but you'd maybe want just a little bit of more experience from him.
Yeah.
And, you know, a Bears assistant coach for 4 years. Again, hopefully that Big Ten experience can really translate for him.
For sure.
And hopefully, I mean, obviously, we hope for the best, but it's interesting to see how much of a jump we can really make with him this year. Because again, our offensive line was horrendous this season, and we need something now. I guess the one other little thing to throw in there is his nephew is 4-star QB prospect Dylan Raiola, and he's a 4-star in the 2024 class. He's been offered by Georgia, Bama, OSU, and you know he's a big, like, I think he's like 6'3" already, 215 like kind of guy. He's impressive. Again, obviously being offered by all those teams is pretty impressive. I mean, if that somehow weasels its way to helping us,
yeah, you know, hey, why not?
It makes sense. But I hope that wasn't the main reason that we hired him.
For sure, for sure. So again, the biggest talking point here, and what's going to matter the most, because again, this is a situation where you're hiring an offensive coordinator who's going to be full-time calling the plays next year. So this was the highlight of the offseason. The big thing that we had to figure out and try to decipher here was who's Frost going to target? Who does he trust to call the offense? And we settled on Mark Whipple from Pittsburgh. And at first, I think everyone was like, okay, this is a little weird. I mean, like he's older, doesn't really fit the current like status of the staff with a lot of middle-aged guys who've been around Frost for a while. But Whipple's 64 years old, and he's currently was the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
the ACC champions.
Yeah, the ACC champion. Just what I was about to say. Clemson had a down year, and Pittsburgh took their opportunity. Obviously, with Heisman contender, you know, Kenny Pickett, who had a phenomenal season this year. You know, as we kind of go into this, Kenny Pickett, his kind of philosophy, I think, with a lot of his guys was not so much the throwing motion working on so much, not the mechanics, but more so working on their mind, their awareness, understanding the playbook, understanding just more of the movement things than just like maybe your throwing arm. And you could kind of see that in Kenny Pickett. His throwing motion maybe wasn't the most conventional at times, but he did have great pocket awareness. And again, was a dual threat quarterback as well, which kind of plays into Mark Whipple, who, you know, he was a quarterback at Brown University in the 70s. And he was also a dual threat quarterback himself, and was pretty solid. And then obviously says he's 64. He's got quite the resume on him since he's been in football this long. So then he was the offensive coordinator at Union College, then went back to Brown where he's a wide receivers coach. And then he coached in the USFL for a minute in the 80s. And then kind of where he really started to get his notoriety was with the University of New Haven, who had a team in 1992 that averaged 52.5 yards or 52.5 points per game, and was named the best offense in college football by Sports Illustrated that year. Well, and then the next year broke a lot of records. And like that's kind of where he started being kind of known for his offensive system. Then he went back to Brown with his stint at New Haven in the 80s, 90s, and he kind of broke a lot of Ivy League records then at the time. And then really where it really hit off was UMass from 1998 to 2003. And his first season at UMass, he won the Division I AA national championship. Again, broke a lot of offensive records, was pretty good there, and then won 3 conference titles in 5 years for UMass. But again, this isn't the UMass that's now Division I. This was Division I AA UMass. So quite a big difference there. Obviously, him bringing them success got them the bump up to FBS football, and he was probably a big proponent of that. But after that, he went on to the NFL, and he was the QB coach of the Steelers from 2004 to 2007. Impressive, as that was Big Ben's rookie season, and he had the best rookie record of any player with going 13-0 as a rookie. And then in 2006,
and then they won the Super Bowl. The next year.
They won Super Bowl XL.
Well, one thing I wanted to say there about the Steelers was because I went back and looked up some articles about Big Ben and his relationship with them here. And like, it was actually interesting to hear Big Ben talk about him, because like you said, with how he approached coaching was, Big Ben said basically like, Whipple let me be me, but he really helped coach me to understand the game, really coached me as a football player, not just as like a quarterback. And so it was an interesting approach. Like he said, he didn't really coach me on the details or the fundamentals of being a quarterback, but he coached me on the mental aspect and how to approach the game. So I thought that was really interesting. And Big Ben talked really fondly of Whipple in the years to come after that. So
those mid-late 90s to early 2000s were kind of Whipple's heyday, I would say, as a coach. And then from there, it was kind of, he bounced around. Mike Tomlin let him go the next year because Big Ben threw him in too many interceptions after the Super Bowl season.
I think it was like 22 or something.
Yeah, and then, then he was hired by Philly for a year, and then he went to be the offensive coordinator at Miami, and then they didn't have a great season, got fired after they lost to USF. Then he was the Cleveland Browns QB coach for 2 years, and nobody coaching for the Browns is going to do anything good
with their quarterbacks.
Exactly. So terrible. It was like Seneca was their QB at the time or something.
Oh, Seneca Wallace?
Yeah. So nothing great there. And then went back to UMass as a D1 program.
Yeah. So now you're a D1 head coach here. So like that's what gets interesting. So he returned to the program that he helped really develop and
grow
and win from. So that was kind of a weird stint for him. Obviously, he was there for 4 seasons and he didn't have a lot of success. He went 14-44. So there is like an interesting like aspect there where it's like, he definitely didn't succeed there after having success in the NFL as a positional coach. Went to be a head coach, it didn't work. And he also got suspended his final season for some things he said about referees, and it was just a weird final season for him where their defense was awful. They gave up over 50 points 6 times that season. It's like, maybe he's not a head coach, but good news, he's not our head coach.
He's not our head coach.
Then the last 3 years he's been at Pittsburgh as the offensive coordinator. The big narrative here, and what we have to talk about the most is probably our talking point, is Kenny Pickett and the development of this and how this offense developed under Mark Whipple and how Kenny Pickett developed under Mark Whipple specifically. Because I guess really the debate is, how much did Mark Whipple have to do with Kenny Pickett and Pittsburgh's success these final few seasons?
We saw a lot of good things and even some similarities with Big Ben and Kenny Pickett in the sense of they're really mobile outside the pocket and really handle pressure well to get outside of the pocket.
They're gunslingers.
And they make big throws down the field. So that's exciting. And again, I think Kenny Pickett, his pocket awareness was just so impressive, especially this last season, how he was able to stay in the pocket, move up the pocket, extend the plays, and then make the throws, and also could be deadly with his legs too. And obviously that says a lot just about Kenny Pickett as well. But, again, being a coach for a couple successful guys and successful offenses does give you some hope. And again, maybe even though UMass was terrible defensively, they weren't the worst thing ever offensively.
No.
And again, like you said, we don't need him as a head coach. We just need him as an offensive coordinator. And I do see how Scott Frost's philosophy and Whipple's philosophy kind of like interchange, and like
definitely
they're big QB first kind of guys. They're trying to get the right QB into the system to fit and make all the plays. And
they want to run RPOs. They want to run option plays. They want to play with a lot of play action from the shotgun. They want a quarterback who can do it all. Like, there's a lot of the similarities there, which is why Frost chose Whipple here.
And Whipple's maybe a little bit more pro-style offense than Frost is in a spread. You're
less likely to run, the option plays and like that type of stuff.
Whipple really liked the 3 wide receiver sets, and also the tight end was utilized for him too quite a bit. So
definitely,
but he definitely liked maybe a little bit more pro style set for him. But the offensive line was pretty good in the ACC too this year, so I guess that was noticeable.
For sure. And like, that's the thing. Kenny Pickett was there before Whipple got there. So again, this is another situation where did Whipple stumble on the gem?
Was it the chicken or the egg?
Is it the chicken or the egg? Who created what? And I think there is an argument to say that Whipple did a good job of developing Pickett. I mean, he was there. Pickett in his second season was like, all right, like a 58% completion percentage guy. And we saw some big time improvement as we moved on. And by his senior season, he was throwing 67%. He was throwing for like 3,000, 4,000 yards those seasons. And the biggest thing is we saw a massive uptick in how much he threw the ball. And Whipple definitely likes to throw the ball and like wants to get that ball out and air it out. And if he has a quarterback that he trusts, they're willing to zing that thing all over the field. Obviously, Pittsburgh's offensive line played very well this year. That would be probably the biggest X factor versus Nebraska and Pittsburgh and the ACC versus the Big Ten and how you can approach the game. But overall, I think we saw a lot of good signs from Pittsburgh. And that's why I'm pretty optimistic about this hire actually heading into this season, especially if you bring in a guy like, you know, Dillon Gabriel or like a Spencer Rattler who really can zing the ball around the field.
Yeah, if we could land one of those guys, then you get really, really excited. Especially, I think like a Spencer Rattler might be a perfect fit, for Frost and Whipple.
Unconventional.
Yeah, again, unconventional
throw the ball, different release angles.
Has some leg speed. I definitely think he would be an exciting fit for Nebraska if we could get him. You know, again, obviously Dillon Gabriel too was really impressive as well. So obviously, if we land either one, we're ecstatic as Nebraska fans. Yeah. Again, because we need something for this next season.
How do you feel about Logan Smothers in this offense? Like, let's say Logan Smothers ends up being the guy.
Again, like this is a more pro style. Like, I don't know how I'd feel about it because again, like
Whipple wants to prioritize the pass.
Yeah, like it is definitely pass first. Use the legs if needed. Like, you know, it's not a combination. We don't want our quarterback running a bunch. We want him to run if it's there for him.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not designed.
To be fair, Whipple did seem very willing to utilize, you know, maybe he creates that offense because that's who he had. He had a Kenny Pickett that he believed could zing the ball around. Therefore, you build an offense around it. And he talked about his philosophy with, I watched some interviews of when he first got hired by Pittsburgh, and he was talking about how, like, you know, I want to coach the players how they need to be coached. He's like, I don't have an overarching philosophy, but I want to coach the team that I'm given and coach them to their best potential. And he talked about
I always feel like that's the best philosophy in my opinion.
And like, I think we've definitely talked about how Frost can be stubborn at times and get stuck in his philosophy, his way. Like, so it'll be interesting.
He'll try to fit the square peg in the round hole.
So it'll be interesting to see how they mesh together and their conversation together in the long term as the season moves on, and then who ends up being the quarterback. If it ends up being Logan Smothers, how do you build the offense around a guy like Logan Smothers, and can you develop him to throw the ball downfield? I mean, we didn't mention previously, but he's the offensive coordinator and quarterback's coach. So he's going to have that responsibility to develop whoever it is, Smothers or anyone who's ended up being in that quarterback room. So, I mean, again, and like when we haven't really seen that downfield passing improvement, I mean, like you could say Adrian got back to his like maybe a slight improvement from freshman year form, but Adrian digressed from freshman year to sophomore year to junior year, then had a big step forward downfield passing in his senior year. So there's just all these debates about, you know, what was a development in the first place. I don't know.
It just only felt like Adrian hit a guy if he was really wide open.
That's true. And you saw Kenny Pickett throwing guys open and hitting these spots downfield, directing,
pointing them, hey, go this way in the end zone. Like that's the field general stuff that I think Adrian was always missing. He didn't have the ability to improvise. He was not.
He athletically could improvise.
He could with his legs. He could 100% with his legs improvise the play, but he could not with his arm and like
generally
around the
not.
field.
No.
Yeah, just probably the way that he's going to be able to teach those things too. Will also help our offense, I think.
Oh yeah,
dramatically,
absolutely, for sure. So it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm looking forward to it. It makes sense. So again, with Frost coming back and these hires, at least there's some room for optimism and hope heading into next season offensively. And then especially if you can bring in a proven downfield thrower like a Dillon Gabriel or, you know, even a Spencer Rattler. I know a lot of Husker fans are worried about Rattler's attitude and how he would approach Nebraska if he was to be here, but the arm talent is enticing.
Undeniable. It's an undeniable.
Yeah.
Again, he was the Heisman favorite running into this season.
And he got benched for Caleb Williams, who literally came in and was like PFF's highest graded player. So it's like, you know, if you're going to lose the starting job to someone, at least you're losing it to maybe the best quarterback in the country right now. So, you know, it's like there is some debates there. So we'll see what happens moving forward with those guys. Again, we'll talk a lot more about the quarterback situation in the next few videos as well, and recruiting and the transfer portal and all of that. But without further ado, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop all your comments down below about Nebraska and the coaching staff and your guys' thoughts, and I'll be excited to see what you guys have to say. But as always, I'm Josh, that's Caleb, this is Backseat Sports, and we will see you next time. Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.